The movie begins in the vibrant city of Lagos, Nigeria, where we meet Grace, a beautiful and elegant young woman. Grace is an orphan, and on this particular day, she is dressed to impress, looking radiant in her outfit and makeup as she heads out for an important job interview. Life hasn't been easy for Grace. She has applied to numerous companies, but either faced rejection or was left in limbo. This time, she hopes things will be different. As Grace makes her way to the interview, we shift to a bustling market area under the same Lagos sky. Amid the chaos, she notices a young man who, despite his handsome features, looks unkempt, malnourished, and dirty. He is desperately trying to get the attention of passersby, but no one stops. Instead, they gossip about him, assuming he's running a scam to take advantage of innocent people. According to them, he has been sitting helplessly in the same spot for weeks. Grace overhears the rumors and, like everyone else, initially walks past him. However, something tugs at her conscience. She can't shake the image of this poor, helpless young man, so she turns back to offer help. When she approaches him, she asks if he is okay and how she can assist him, but the young man is too weak to speak. His eyes, however, speak volumes. He gestures for a pen and paper, which Grace quickly provides. With trembling hands, he struggles to write, but manages to scribble down an address. His hands still shaking, he hands the note to Grace before collapsing and passing out. Panicking, Grace tries to wake him, but he's unresponsive. Desperate, she attempts to flag down passing drivers for help, but no one is willing to stop. Everyone fears that it's a scam or a serious situation they don't want to get involved in. Eventually, a kind-hearted tricycle rider sees her distress and offers to help. Later that day, using the address the young man wrote, Grace and the rider arrive at their destination. She bangs on the gate, shouting for help, drawing the attention of the security guard. Irritated by the commotion, the guard asks what they are doing there. Grace hurriedly explains the situation and shows him the address. The guard checks and, to their relief, confirms they're in the right place. What happens next is unexpected. As the guard glances at the unconscious young man, his eyes widen in shock. He immediately shouts, "Small Oga!" and rushes inside to call the chief and his wife. When they all rushed outside, curious about the commotion, their hearts raced in disbelief and amazement. They were stunned to see their son, Kelvin, in such a terrible condition. Without hesitation, they hurriedly arranged to take him to the hospital. Grace quickly paid the tricycle rider, and in the midst of the urgency, the chief thanked her and handed her his business card, as there was no time for further conversation. Realizing she was supposed to attend an important interview, Grace rushed back to the office. Unfortunately, when she arrived, the interview was already over, and the security guard refused her entry. Frustrated and disappointed, Grace was left feeling defeated. Later that day at the hospital, Kelvin was being treated, and both of his parents were relieved and overjoyed. When Kelvin regained consciousness, he was confused and wanted to know what had happened. The doctor reassured him, and his mother began to explain how he had been reported missing. She was about to go into more detail, but her husband gently advised that it wasn't the right time to disclose such sensitive information. Meanwhile, that evening at Grace's home, her friend Linda was completely shocked by what Grace had experienced earlier. Grace, unsure if she had made the right decision by helping Kelvin, shared her doubts. Linda criticized her, saying she had been too emotional and unreasonable for giving up what could have been a life-changing opportunity. Linda's harsh words stung, as she suggested that Grace had made a mistake by forfeiting the interview for a stranger. What do you all think? Was Grace right to follow her heart? Or was Linda right in her harsh judgment? Let me know in the comments. Despite Linda's criticisms, Grace tried to move on and continued searching for new job opportunities. As she began organizing her things, the business card from Chief James slipped out. She picked it up, remembering that the chief had given it to her and invited her to contact him. Unsure of what to do, she asked Linda, "Should I call him or not?" Linda didn't have much advice, but was a bit discouraging, suggesting Grace might be overthinking it. Unfazed by Linda's attitude, Grace decided to make the call. Fortunately, Chief James answered. Grace reintroduced herself and inquired about Kelvin's condition. The chief remembered her instantly and sincerely thanked her again for saving his son's life. He then invited her to dinner whenever she was free, and Grace agreed to the invitation. A few days later, Kelvin was stable and looking much better. Sitting with his parents in their elegant living room, he expressed his gratitude to them for helping him recover. He was curious about the kind woman who had saved his life. His father, smiling, told him it was a beautiful angel named Grace, who had come to his rescue just in time. His mother added, "If not for her, I would have lost my son." Later that evening, Grace was at home, frustrated as she searched for job vacancies on her phone with no success. Suddenly, Chief James called, but Grace, unaware of who it was, answered angrily, "Who are you, please?" "I'm busy." Chief James, slightly confused, asked, "Oh, sorry, am I speaking to Grace?" Recognizing his voice, Grace quickly apologized. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, sir. I thought it was someone else." Chief James laughed it off and reminded her about the dinner with his family, which Grace happily accepted. At the Addisons' home, a lavish dinner was underway with several wealthy families. As the evening progressed, Grace arrived, looking radiant in a red dinner dress, with her hair neatly plaited, wearing glossy red lipstick and sparkling earrings and necklace. She stood at the door, feeling nervous. Kelvin, captivated by her beauty, went to welcome her. Chief James and his wife Rose were pleased to see her and ensured she was served a delicious meal. Among the guests was Patricia, a beautiful woman from the wealthy Johnson family. She became jealous seeing Grace and Kelvin sitting together, seemingly getting along well. The dinner was exquisite, with mouth-watering dishes and fine red wines. Afterward, Rose complimented Grace's appearance and thanked her for coming. Kelvin offered to drop Grace off, but Chief James instructed him to take Patricia home instead and arranged for his driver to drop Grace off. Patricia smiled with satisfaction as she left with Kelvin, who apologized to Grace. But she understood. Despite this, Kelvin felt drawn to Grace, the woman who saved his life. He asked his father for her number and frequently called her, visited her, and they spent a lot of time together. They shared many beautiful moments, laughing and enjoying each other's company. Kelvin was enchanted by Grace's free spirit and charm. Meanwhile, Patricia, feeling sidelined, confided in Mrs. Rose the next day. On the balcony, she expressed her fear of losing Kelvin to Grace and pleaded for Rose's help. Rose assured Patricia that she had nothing to worry about, dismissing Grace as beneath their class. Patricia remained unconvinced as Kelvin continued to spend time with Grace. Rose, however, reassured her, saying, "Grace is not a match for our family. There's no way Kelvin will settle for someone like her." Later that day, Kelvin and Grace were spending time together, enjoying ice cream under a shade at Grace's home. Curious, Grace asked Kelvin what had happened to him before she found him. Kelvin, having suffered head injuries and some memory loss, recalled bits and pieces. He explained, "I was a bad but somewhat good guy. My parents always warned me to be careful. I was in a relationship, but she wasn't the woman of my dreams, more like my parents' choice. One day, after being matched with her by my parents, I left the house in anger. A car followed me, and I thought it was one of my father's bodyguards, but I ended up getting blocked. That's where my memory ends." Grace felt sympathy for him, and Kelvin thanked her sincerely, saying, "I believe I got a second chance at life, and it's all thanks to you, Grace." Blushing, Grace smiled and said the thanks belonged to God. A few minutes later, Kelvin's iPhone 15 Pro Max rang. It was his mother, asking where he was and demanding he return home. Kelvin bid farewell to Grace and left. Back at the Addison mansion, his parents sat him down and reminded him it was time to settle down with the woman they'd chosen for him. Kelvin, confused and not ready, listened as his father explained, "Your mother and I can't wait anymore. People are asking questions, and a wedding is expected soon." Kelvin, irritated, responded that he'd settle down when he was ready. His mother, suspicious, asked, "I hope you have nothing to do with that low-class girl, son." Kelvin firmly replied, "Mom, that girl saved my life. She's my friend, so please don't speak of her that way." He bid them good night and went to his room. The next morning, as Kelvin was about to leave, his parents were having breakfast. His father asked where he was headed, and when his mother asked if it was Grace, he answered, "Yes, it is her. Any problem with that?" Shocked, his parents watched him leave. That night, upon returning home, Kelvin's father told him that Chief Johnson had called and set the wedding date for Thursday. He urged Kelvin to focus on marrying Patricia. Kelvin, unsurprised, asked, "Dad, have you ever tried to understand what I want?" His father ignored him, but as Kelvin headed to his room, his father warned, "Consider yourself cut off from my assets and no longer my son if you disobey." Kelvin, shocked but unmoved, replied, "I had a second chance at life. I won't waste it to please anyone. You can either support me or consider me gone. With that, he left the room. Days later, Grace was walking home in a quiet area when a black car suddenly stopped and masked men dragged her inside, speeding away. That evening, Linda, concerned when she couldn't reach Grace, called Kelvin, but he hadn't heard from her either. Worried, they both filed a missing person report at the police station. The DPO asked them to wait 24 hours, but Kelvin, impatient, threatened to shut down their operation if they didn't act fast. The officer calmed him down, promising to take immediate action. Upon returning home that same day, Kelvin found his mother and Patricia discussing wedding plans. Upset, he demanded to speak with his father. When his father arrived, Kelvin, frustrated, asked angrily, "Dad, where is Grace?" This left everyone confused, and his mother inquired what had happened. Still paranoid and upset, Kelvin threatened, "Dad, if you don't tell me where Grace is, I swear I'll do something everyone will regret." His father dismissed his concern, assuming Kelvin had lost his mind. Kelvin warned them to reveal Grace's whereabouts, promising not to involve the authorities, then stormed upstairs. Chief James, his wife, and Patricia were left in confusion, and Patricia quickly left due to the now tense atmosphere. The question now loomed: who was responsible? Days later, the police continued their search while Kelvin reminisced about the great times he had shared with Grace. Soon after, he received an urgent call from Linda, informing him that Grace had been found in bad condition and was in the hospital. Kelvin rushed to see her. At the hospital, Kelvin was relieved to see the woman he loved. The DPO, present in the ward, revealed that Grace had been found brutally attacked by a group of men who had since been arrested. Kelvin, relieved, instructed the officer to ensure that justice was served and to uncover who was behind the attack. After days of interrogation, the culprits revealed that the person responsible for Grace's abduction was none other than Patricia Johnson. Shocking, right? At the Addisons' home, everyone, including Patricia and her family, gathered. To everyone's surprise, Kelvin entered with Grace, Linda, the police, and one of the culprits. The officers arrested Patricia for orchestrating Grace's abduction. Though Patricia denied it, the culprit confirmed she had ordered them to get rid of Grace. Everyone was shocked and disappointed. As she was taken away, Patricia begged for forgiveness from the Addisons and her parents. Kelvin's parents, ashamed of Patricia's actions, immediately canceled the wedding plans. Patricia's family apologized to the Addisons and Grace before leaving in shame. Chief James, reflecting on his earlier behavior, apologized to Kelvin and Grace, recognizing his son's maturity and Grace's goodness. Kelvin's mother also apologized, and they all embraced as a united family. In a touching moment, Kelvin proposed to Grace with a heart-shaped diamond ring, expressing his love and gratitude. She happily accepted, and his parents gave their blessings. Linda, thrilled for her friend, joined in the celebration. This remarkable movie storyline teaches us two valuable lessons: to be grateful and resilient despite life's challenges. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to Movie Storyline for more captivating tales. See you next time, and goodbye.